This is my knit kit, and inside of here is pretty much everything I need to knit a project from cast on to cast off, other than the yarn, of course, and the knitting needles. So I kind of wanted to show everything I've collected and fit in here, how I organize it, and, you know, kind of point out some cool tricks I've learned out from along the way. The case itself is actually a pill organizer from Amazon. It's just kind of a black plastic. It's nice because it's sort of this compact size that fits into a project bag really easily. And it closes by magnet, so you can see that there's these magnets here. And other than that, it's sort of just like plastic. So if you overflow it, it kind of like pops up like that. So you have to be a little careful, but it's not really an issue. I think at one point I was just trying to fit like a larger tape measure, and that's when it doesn't close fully, as if you have something large and bulky in there. But as long as you have small objects, things like yarn, it just squishes it down when you shut it, so you don't really have to worry about that. Great. So let's start with, I guess, this section, which is kind of like the main knitting stuff, and the largest section. So I have my tape measure here. This one's good because, again, it is small enough to fit in there. It's flat enough. I think it comes in a 3-pack, so I have another one just sitting inside of like my go-to sock yarn project bag, because I pretty much am always knitting a pair of socks. It's just nice to have something mindless that you can kind of knit in the round for an hour. Like if you're kind of watching a show, or yeah, if you just need something mindless. So I have an extra one in there, and then I have the other one because it came in a 3-pack. I made an entire one of these kits for my sister-in-law who also knits. So that was pretty nice. A lot of these things come in multiples, so it does make a really good gift if you want to give a fellow knitter this complete kit, which I've done. So that fits in there nicely. The scissors, this was hard to find. I know a lot of scissors come with, or a lot of knit kits come with, let me find it. I have all my other knitting stuff close by. Kind of come with this size, and I guess this is like a good frame of reference for how small this kit is, because this would not fit in there. But I found these, and they're like a little keychain scissors. Get it to focus. Look at how cute that is. And it folds down, so you pop it open there, and then that's where you get your lever going, and then it just folds back in. So I know for US TSA, this is totally fine. I think it's like a 3 or 4 inch limit in the States. But I feel like I've seen people traveling to other countries and their airline restrictions do not allow a scissor this size. So I would double check, especially since this is something I totally bring on the plane with me. For what else I have in this big section, these are like notes that I've literally printed out because things I can't remember. So Italian bind off. This is literally printed out onto an index card. I taped an index card onto a sheet of computer paper and then printed onto it and then taped it with packing tape. So Italian bind off, can never remember her. So this is the setup and then the repeat. It's like super tiny. And then on the other side, I have the shortcuts for make one right and make one left, because I can never remember the difference. And this just saves me so much time from having to like pick up my phone and Google something. And then I only ever think of knitting needles in terms of millimeter size, but sometimes people will be talking about US sizes, and I also just had some extra space on here and wanted to put something else on there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This is an index card that I taped down. And then these kind of have some of the same information. This is, my friend gave this to me. It was really cute. I have other stuff from this keychain that she gave me as a knitting gift. Also another knit gift. I think it was from Etsy. It came with like these like mini crochet hooks on there, and then some stitch markers, and then a little mini ruler. I just have taken it apart so I can fit it and use it more often, but it does have Kitchener and make one right, make one left. I think I repeated it on this because I was already making it for my sister-in-law. So I just figured this was so handy that I wanted to put that on there. So that's everything in this big compartment, which kind of fits in nicely there. It like has space. I'm never so packed in there, which is great. Because I think this was like the trickiest compartment to figure out. And then we'll just move to the other side over here. Here I have just an assortment of, I already showed you this little mini crochet hook. So that came from the keychain, but I'm sure I can find some online too. And that's great because it just fits right in there for, you know, your dropped stitches or your occasional provisional cast on. And then I just have a couple darning needles or yarn sewing needles, whatever you want to call them. A couple plastic ones, a smaller metal one, and then a bigger metal one. This is good if you're doing something bulky, but if you're working with like a sock yarn, or if you have not a super long tail, it's hard to weave those in with these longer needles, just because you like don't have space to actually sew. So it's nice to have a smaller one. And then I keep bread tags in here. This is one of those tips that I learned from some video a long time ago, and now I always use it. So an example are on these socks. This is the tail end. So if I just unravel it here, let me see, I guess it goes this way. So these are super handy to have, one, because they're like free, you just start collecting them from your bread. And two, when you cast something on and you have this long tail at the end of it that's just getting in the way of your knitting, one of the first things I do once I establish a couple rows is I'll just grab one of these bread tags and then wind all my extra yarn up. I think people even use bread tags for when they're knitting intarsia or with smaller, trying to break up their yarn into smaller bundles, I guess. I don't really do that in Tarja. I just deal with the tangles and keep unknotting things as I go. But yeah, keep the bread tags in there. They're super flat and handy to have. And then it's just one of those things too. It's like once you make a little kit, it's just so much easier because you actually have sort of a place for everything. Whereas before I feel like I'd be like, oh, bread tag, that's cool. But I just never had a place that I actually would collect it. So that's great. And then this little compartment is not very exciting. These are just tails of projects I was weaving and snipping the ends from. It's just a place to put it. And then eventually let me go grab it. It's nice because I'll have a place for my tails when I'm weaving in ends on the go. And then I just put it in there, and then every once in a while I just dump it into my scrap yarn jar. And I have started carding this into roving to eventually spin my own yarn, which is why I'm hoarding scraps. It's really hard not to hoard because it's beautiful fiber and you don't want to waste it. So this is just like a little mini trash can, basically. You can use it as a trash can. You can keep all your trash in there until you are close to your trash can, and then you're not littering or shoving it in the bottom of your bag or getting up from your work if you're just working on the sofa. Let's do this. Oops. Let's do this side next. Very self-explanatory. We all have a lot of these. Plastic stitch markers. And then I have a couple, especially when I was knitting more bulky projects when I was starting out. I do have these like DIY. I just needed big stitch markers and I did not want to pay money for them. So these are just zip ties that I just made into big loops and then trimmed them down. And then kind of all the free stitch markers you get, I feel like every time you order anything knitting related. And then here are metal ones. And this is like the only downside to this system is I have a magnet right here, so they all jump up. So this is kind of the only one that's like a pain to close. But I do like having the little, oh geez. They're flinging everywhere. So I do like having, these metal light bulb stitch markers as an affordable upgrade, I'd say, to the plastic ones. They're really nice. Oh, this is just a random safety pin. This does not belong in there. They're really nice for when you are knitting something like socks or something on a finer yarn. And they're also really nice for kind of marking the rows. Just the little plastic ones can get a little clunky. And then again, when you're working with smaller yarns, I feel like they don't close as reliably. So then you're almost like fiddling with it more with the smaller yarns, and then things can move out of the way. Whereas this is going to close really reliably. And if it doesn't, you're going to end up poking yourself. So you have bigger problems. And then the magnet, kind of always bad on that. So you just have to be a little bit careful that it's not all magneted on there when you shut it. And then moving to the side. So you would think this is more trash yarn, but it's not. These are longer scraps of yarn in case I ever need to put some stitches on hold. So I just have like a little mini ball of yarn in there. But yeah, one in a sock yarn for anything that's knit on something smaller. And then I do just have, I think this is like a random acrylic worsted weight. I have them in bright colors so they really stand out. When you are putting stitches on hold, this will contrast most projects. And then over here, I have some barber cord which is what I'll use most of the time instead of putting stitches on hold. But just in case, you know, you run out of barber cord or you don't have like the right length. So I do have some barber cord. And then barber cord is basically, in case you haven't used it before, it is just a tube. Ooh, focus. It's a long piece of plastic bucatini. There's a tube down there, and what you do, here I can grab another piece of it. And for when you're putting a project on hold, so I'll go back to these socks, you basically can just shove this barber cord onto the tip of the needle. Okay, we're gonna get this to focus. Okay, yeah. You shove this literally onto the tip of the needle, and then you can pretty reliably just, oh, famous last words. Look at all these drop stitches. Okay. Here's my trick for drop stitches is pinch the project. Pinch it. They fall out way less. And sorry if I'm stressing you guys out right now, but I'm gonna do this before I continue. Okay, pinch it. Well, I'll fix those stitches when I get to them on the next round. As long as you have part of the stitch or the stitch below it, you'll be fine. Okay. That was a terrible advertisement for barber cord. It works better on a slightly larger project because this has like a lip now that's bigger than the gauge of this needle. So you slip it on there, and then in theory, you can just transfer those stitches over onto this and off the needle. Maybe not best for this size project. Usually it's super fast and easy, and I'm embarrassed that that's my example, but here we are. And then also with the barber cord, I guess this is sort of the stop stitches from flying off your needles box, because I have some stitch stoppers. These ones are smaller, so they will fit this sock needle. So you can kind of tuck your project away, and then your needle isn't going to be poking anything or flying off. And then these are, let me reach and grab that. Here are some bigger ones for chunky needles, which I don't end up using that much because I don't make chunky knits that much anymore, but it is such a bummer because I think these are just like the cutest little stitch stoppers. Just pop them on the needle. So yeah, that's kind of everything that I keep in this little pill case. I do have one other recommendation for knitting accessories if you are looking to kind of up your kit, and that is any type of like purse organizer. You can see inside here. Oh, it's black, so you really cannot see inside of here. I have a lighter one over here, which is a little bit smaller. And these are just so great because, one, purse organizers are so cheap. I feel like I just got a bunch from my mom because I don't know why. I feel like she was from the generation of putting purse organizers in your purses. So there were just a bunch floating around the house. And then since then I bought my own. But they always have so many good compartments. So yeah, here, like a zippered pouch. And then lots of like upright compartments, like for, I guess, all of the like lip glosses and pens that we're carrying in our purses. But there's space, you know, basically to put your knitting needles or extra knitting needles. There's always space to just put your pattern in, a pen in case you like to cross things off on your pattern. Over here on this one, I have like a crochet hook. This one's a little bigger, which is nice for, you know, if you're sewing, sorry, not sewing, if you're knitting something a little bigger. And then, yeah, there's like this kind of big pocket inside of here that you can like put your whole pattern in there. And then, again, it's so dark in here, but there's a bunch of yarn right there. And there's so much space for it. And then because they're a purse organizer, you can just like drop them into whatever tote or backpack or carry-on, and then it all just stays together. So I feel like that's a trick I've learned, and I feel like I maybe invented it, but it's a good one. So yeah, this is kind of all I need if I'm traveling with my knits. And then these just fit into the purse organizer on the side, or you can just keep them out and about or in your knitting basket that lives by your sofa for when you're watching TV and knitting, which is kind of what I do. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and I'd love to hear what types of little knitting knickknacks, tricks, tips that you use. Do you use pouches? Are you interested in something with a little bit more structure? Do you think that this would be too small for you, too big for you? Let me know. Okay, bye.